And okay, so here, let's talk about setting up our assignment. There is a handout, and you'll just follow it kind of step by step. I'm gonna follow it mostly step by step. I'm not gonna do everything, but we'll talk about some of the basic stuff, and then we'll talk about what I'm grading. I already have a project I'm already working on, but I'll just show you again how to set it up real fast. To set up your document, you're just gonna go File, New, and you've probably done this in the intro class. So you go File, New, and then you wanna pick a letter size page. So you just click letter. Now, if you can't find that for some reason, you can put in like 8.5 inches by 11 inches. You could do that, although it's gonna be 11 inches by 8.5. And then the resolution you want is 300 pixels per inch. Oh, this is something I failed to mention earlier. RGB, we work in RGB, even though this project is more probably for printing, we still work in RGB, not CMYK. What happens is you work in RGB because you have more options, but then if you're gonna send it to a printer, like a big printer, not just a regular, like a home printer, you can just print RGB. But if you're gonna send it to a big industrial printer where it matters, then at the last minute, you convert it to CMYK. And that's how most people work. So RGB is always good to work in. And you can print, like I said, on a small printer, like at home or at school, you can print RGB. It's okay. Like I said, it's just those big printers, those industrial ones. And you might learn about that in a future class. Anyways, RGB is good, 300 resolution. I'm gonna hit create. So here's my document. Now, if you're following along, and I apologize if I go a little too fast, what I recommend, the first thing is let's save our host document, even though we haven't done anything to it yet. Let's save it so that way you know that this is your host document. Now, your handout says save it as like number one, your last name, your last name. But I recommend you save it this way. Watch, I'll show you how to save it. In fact, I'm just gonna save this one. So watch, you'll go File, Save As, and here's what, and you can save it to a folder on your computer. You can save it to your desktop. It would be nice to have a folder on your desktop to save it to, right? But I recommend that you save it as 2200. 2200 is the name, or is the number for our class. Your last name, 01. So you're gonna name it 2200, your last name, 01. And why? I just like that number better. It's like the class, the name, the project. But if you followed the handout, like let's say you forget this and you just follow the handout says number one, your last name, and that's it, that's fine. Like if you follow the handout, you're okay. But if you remember this, do it this way. I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna save it over my other one. So I'm gonna go save, I'm gonna replace it. Okay. Now, let's talk about getting those images into our project. First though, let me grab a couple images that aren't in here. Let's see, the person. So here's the person. And I'm gonna get this one too, and the heart. So I'm gonna get these three images and I'm gonna open them up. So I'm gonna go this. So I have three, I'm gonna open them up. So here they are. They're gonna be in tabs up here. Now I'm opening my images from Bridge, but you don't have to use Bridge. Watch, you can just go in Photoshop, you can go File, Open. This is like the normal way. You go File, Open, and then you have to find the folder where you saved all of those, like where you downloaded all those images. So like, I think, where am I? Oh, here it is. I got FITM. Let's see. Here it is. Here's my folder. So you just have to find your folder and then you pick an image. I'll do the fence. So fence, and then I just hit open. You can actually open more than one like this too. If you hold like Control, you can select more than one and then hit open. Just don't do like, I mean, I don't recommend you open them all at once. You'll have a big long list and it'll be confusing. But I would recommend opening 3 or 4, or if you are a glutton for punishment, you could probably open all of these. But then again, it might really slow down your computer. Anyways, I'm just gonna open just this one. So I'm gonna hit open. And it'll add it right here. Now, let me show you first, let's convert the size, and then I'll show you how to move it into the project. So the fence needs to be, well, first, let's look at the image size. So the first thing I do is I go image size. Then I want to look at the resolution. So the resolution is 72, but I want it to be 300. And I check to make sure it's pixels per inch. It is, so it's pixels per inch. Now, I have to click on, this is correct. So normally this is check marked. So I want to uncheck mark resample. Then I want to change the resolution. So it's like 300. Okay. But now I want to change the size. So according to my handout, it says this is what the fence, it tells you under detailed instructions. The fence is 3 inches tall. So now I want it, now when I change the size, the actual size, I do want to click on resample, and then I'm going to do 3 inches in height. It says tall, it says 3 inches tall. There, 3 inches. Yeah, question?
How big is the actual document? Is it just 8.5 by 11 or?
Oh, the host document is 8.5 by 11.
Okay.
Yeah, and it'll be like when you create a new document, usually there's a letter page, like a letter template. Use that, and then make sure it's landscape. Yeah, I can show you again real quick. Here, just let me let's see this. So this is
How do we turn landscape, like if we're already in the document?
it's almost better if you haven't done anything to it, just delete it and do it again. There is a way. You have to rotate canvas. You would go, I'll show you. You go image, then you go image rotation, and you rotate it, I think 90. Yeah, rotate it 90 clockwise, and that'll rotate your canvas. Or you can just throw it away and then just make it correct the first time. So like, it would be like new, it would be letter. And then while you're creating it, you would do landscape like this. You just click on the orientation landscape. But you could rotate your image. It was image rotation, 90 degrees clockwise. That'll do it too. Okay. So now this is the right size. And remember all that fancy stuff I said about preserving the bigness and don't worry about that. We're just going to follow the handout because this is practice to kind of manage our images and make them easier to use for this particular project, just to get practice. So I did make it smaller. I'm following this, I'm following the paper. Now, before I drag this into my project, it needs to be a smart object. So I right click on the layer and I go convert to smart object. And then don't forget, you can also go like to convert it to a smart object, you can go layer, convert, it'll be like layer, smart objects, convert to smart object. You can do, there's like a couple different ways on how to do it. Now, I also need to rename it. The easiest way to rename it is just to double click on the name, layer 0. And I'm just going to name it fence. If you had a different name, locks, wall, I don't care, but fence, I think that's what they call it. So I'm just following that paper. But if you gave it a slightly different name, it's fine. I don't care. Now, the question is, how do I get this thing this image into my host document? So the easiest way to do it is this. You're going to use the move tool and you're going to drag it in to the tab. So I have different tabs up here. I got all my different tabs for my different documents that I have open. And this is my host document. And I want to get that image into this. So what I can do is I go to the fence image and I'm going to use my move tool. Now you can drag the layer. I like to drag the layer, or you can drag the image. But if you drag the image, you have to have the move tool selected. So watch, I'm just going to hold my left mouse button down and I'm going to drag it right on top of there's like an arrow and I'm holding my left mouse button down. I drag it to the tab and it opens that tab. Then I move my arrow into this document and I let go of my mouse button and it will put it there. And you don't have to, but if you hold shift, when you let go of your mouse, it will center it. But you don't have to hold shift. You can let go and then you just move it around. Because like, I think this image, we're going to move it around anyways. Let me show you another way how to get your image into your project. So here's my fence project. It's a tab, right? I can actually move this tab to be a separate window and then move it in. So watch this. So right now I can just hold my left mouse button on the fence tab and I can drag it down and it kind of becomes its own window, Now, normally you can move the window back to this gray area and it'll put it back in as a tab, but my computer is set up differently, so I can't just put it back in here. But normally you would be able to put it back in if you wanted. But it's a separate window. Then I can look at, here's my document, here's my host document, and I can kind of maybe move this over. I've got this other window for this image, and then you can just drag it over that way. So again, you could use the move tool and you can just drag this over here. So watch, I'll just drag it. So I'm just gonna drag it in and let go. There it is. I'm gonna undo that. Or my favorite thing to do is make sure your image is selected that you want to drag in. I always just drag the layer. So here's my layer. I'm gonna drag it in, let go. Okay. Or here's a weird way to do it. In case everything's not working and you're like, I can't get those images into my host document, what do? Here's only use this as a last resort, because what it's gonna do is it's gonna throw away your status as a smart object. But watch, here's something I can do. Let's say I can't pull it into that host document to save my life. I can select all, copy, and paste it in there. But that's a last resort. So watch, I'll show you. Control A will select all. So it's selected the whole layer. Then I go to my host document and I press Control V to, I don't even know if I copied it. Here, let's see. So Control A to select all, Control C to copy, and then I go to my host document and Control V to paste. Control V. You're like, oh, that was awesome, it worked. The problem though is when you do it that way, it's not a smart object anymore. It's not a smart object. So you're like, well, if you had to do it this way and it worked and it looks pretty good, you can make it a smart object again. So here it is, it's layer 2 right now. I can right click on it, convert to smart object, and then I can rename it again. So I can rename it fence. But it's easier, so I did it that way. It's easier to try to get the tabs to work. So if you can get the tabs to work, go for it, right? So I'll show you one more time. Let's look at, I have the man, the neon man. Okay, so here he is. And let's see. First, I want to change his image size. So I'm going to go image size. You always go to image size. Aha, now look. Here's one of those tricky, remember how I said the instructor that put this together, she has some tricky settings to kind of mess us up, to throw a curveball. So I don't want pixels per centimeter, right? The first time I did this, I'm like, how come this isn't working? Like, she tricked me. It was pretty funny. This is a long time ago. Pixels per centimeter, I want pixels per inch, right? And you know why it tricked me? Because that never happens. It's normally, you'll probably never run into that problem. I mean, maybe if you're like in the UK, I don't know, like or in the rest of the world where everything's metric, but normally it's pretty much pixels per inch. So anyways, I changed it to pixels per inch. Now I need to rechange the size. So I'm going to uncheck resample and I'm going to change the resolution to be 300. Okay. Then I want to change the document. I want to shrink this thing down. So now I do have to click resample. Okay. And then according to this handout, let's see, the neon man needs to be 4 inches tall. So tall is height. So I'm going to go height and I'm going to make that 4. And because these two are linked, height and width are linked, it'll be 4 by whatever, 2.3 inches. And that's it. I'm going to hit OK. Now, you might forget, like me, You're like, what's the order? What do I do? There's a little list, like in one of those things you can download for the assignment. One of them will be just, it's like a 9-step process to do what I just showed you. So if you forget or, whatever, you can just follow this list. And that's kind of what I'm doing. Yep. Hopefully this will help if you forget, or you just watch this video again. And anyways, I tend to forget myself. So if I forget, you may forget. Okay, so I changed his image size. Now he needs to be a smart object. So I'm going to right click, convert to smart object. Then I need to name it. I'm just going to name him person. Person. It's a neon man, but whatever, person. Could be anybody. Then I'm going to drag this into my project. So I'm going to show you the drag the tab, right? So I'm going to drag my layer. So watch, here's my layer for the person. I'm going to drag this person over to my tab for my host document. Now I have my mouse button held down. I'm going to move it in here, and then I'm going to let go to place that person. So that's that. Okay. Finally, I think I've dragged enough images in. Oh, I want to get the nail. So the nail is weird. The nail is a PNG file. It's not a JPEG. Let's go look here. Let's look at the images. Oh, and I want the heart. Oh, I think I had the heart. Let me check. I got the heart. Let me show you the heart real quick. So again, I want to change. This one I need to crop a little bit. So watch. Let's see. I'm going to go image size. I'll do this faster since I've done this like 10 times. I want to uncheck resample, and I'm going to make this 300 pixels per inch. Then I want to change. Oh, then I'm going to hit OK. Why? Because I want to crop away all this excess. So I'm going to use the crop tool, and I'm going to just kind of move it in. So it just, I don't want all that extra background. This is kind of like a metal. It's just like a little graphic. It kind of goes along with the theme. Now I did check. Oh, let's see. I do want to delete crop pixels. Over the break, I tested to see what delete cropped pixels are, and just keep it at delete cropped pixels. So that's the default to delete them. What happens is if you uncheck that, it crops the boy, what does it do? It crops the document, but it still keeps the excess beyond the document. And that might be useful, but sometimes it can be. But for this project, let's just keep it normal. It's just delete cropped pixels. And we just want to delete that excess background for today. It's just easier. Anyways, I'm going to press enter to crop. Okay, so I cropped my heart so I have less stuff. You want to crop some of your images. You want to crop the consumer. You don't want to do it the way, like you don't want to use a mask. You just want to crop the clouds out. Okay, so here it is. I cropped the excess for the heart. Now I want to change the size because according to my handout, it says the heart image needs to be 1 inch tall. Okay, so I'm going to go back to image size. Now, to change the size, I have to check mark resample. And then the height is 1 inch. It's not much different, but it's like half. Okay, so anyways, I'm gonna hit OK. So there it is, it's smaller. Again, I want this to be a smart object first, and I'm gonna name it. I'm just gonna do H for heart, but you would type in heart. Then, or whatever, metal heart, iron heart, I don't care what you name it, heart, drawing, whatever. Now I'm gonna move it in. So again, I'm just gonna use my move tool, and I can just drag this image right on top of the tab for my host document, and I'm just going to let go of my mouse in here somewhere. It's going to put it there. Ooh, it's kind of small. It's hard to see. Okay, now let's talk about the nail. The nail is a PNG file. Oh, wrong one. It's a PNG. Now, usually, well, I take that back. In the past, when I had a PNG and I had Photoshop open, it would it would open that PNG in Photoshop. I believe it did that a couple years ago, but lately, like yesterday when I tried this, there's a different optimization program for PNGs. It's called Adobe Fireworks. Now we don't need Adobe Fireworks. It's just that if I double click on this PNG, it'll open that in Fireworks. And I don't want to do that. I want to open that nail in Photoshop. So how do I open that nail in Photoshop? Well, I'm going to go into Photoshop and I'm going to open that PNG in Photoshop. Then it will open it up in Photoshop. So let me show you. So it's only on this nail because the nail's a PNG. Everything else appears to be a JPEG. Let me check. JPEG, JPEG, JPEG. Yeah. So if you have your Photoshop open and you open a JPEG, it'll open it in Photoshop, but not the PNG. So watch, I'm going to show you. Let's see. So I'm in Photoshop. Now, I want to open that nail in Photoshop. So I'm going to go File, Open. And this is the way you can open your images, right? You want to find the folder where you have all your, you have to like look around until you find your folder. Then you find the nail and then you open it in Photoshop. And when you do that, it'll open it as a Photoshop compatible image. I think it'll say it, oh, it didn't say it rasterized it, but sometimes it says that. So here it is. Now it opened it in Photoshop. Now, again, there's a lot of excess, right? I want to crop that away. All I need is this nail, right? So probably what I like to do is I like to make it 300 pixels per inch first. Technically, you could probably crop away all this excess first if you wanted to, but I prefer to make it 300 resolution first. So I'm going to do that. Image size. I want this to be, I want to make sure it's pixels per inch. It is. Resolution is not 300. So I uncheck resample and I'm going to change the resolution to be 300. It made it smaller in inches. Now, so now I'm going to hit OK because I want to crop away first. So maybe you could have cropped this away first. Whatever. Okay, so I'm going to crop it. I don't want all this excess stuff. So I go crop tool. It's like this tool. Now you just want to get it close. It doesn't have to be like right on the edge of the nail. You can have a little extra, right? It's okay to have a little extra. In fact, it's probably better because there might be a little bit of a gray shadow that might be hard to see. So this is good. So that looks pretty good. Then I want to crop it. So I'm going to press Enter, or I can click on the check mark on the top, but I just always press Enter. Now I want to resize this to be the right size. So now I'm going to go image size, and I want to resample it. When I resample it, it's not going to change the resolution. It's only going to change the size. So believe it or not, according to my handout, it wants my nail to be 0.4 inch. So that's like 0.4 inch. So, and that's going to be for tall. No, let's see. Yep, for tall, so height. So I'm going to do 0.4. So that's 0.4. So it's small. It's a small image. Okay, so then I hit OK. Okay, great. Then I want to be a smart object. So I'm going to right click, smart object. I can name it. I'll name it nail, enter. Okay, then I can drag it in. So using my move tool, I could drag in the image, or I could just drag the layer. I'm going to drag the layer. So I drag the layer on top of the host document. I move it in, and then I let go. So there it is. It's a very tiny, tiny nail. Okay. Now, what I want to teach you is how to make a shadow for your nail. I want to teach you how to make a shadow for your nail, and I want you to group it. So you don't have to do this, but I'm going to show you fast. You do not have to make a shadow for your layer. I'm sorry, for your nail. But I just want to show you how cool it can be. You do not have to do this, but I want you to have the knowledge. So I'm going to zoom in first. I'm going to zoom in on my nail. I can see my nail layer. I want to make a new layer that I can make the shadow. So remember, you don't have to do this. I just want you to have the knowledge. If you do it, great. New layer. So I go layer option, new layer. I'm going to name that layer shadow, or I can name it nail shadow. Just going to name it shadow. Okay. The shadow is on top of the nail. Eventually it needs to be underneath it, but for now I'm okay. It's a separate layer. So when I paint black, it won't paint over, it'll look like it's painting over the nail, but because it's not a separate layer, the nail should be protected. So I'm going to go paintbrush. Now I want to pick a soft, whoa, my brush is really big. So I want to pick a soft brush. I think the default brush is the soft brush, but to change the brush, you select your brush, and then right over here in the upper left, there's a little arrow and you can pick different brushes. I want the soft brush, so that's it. Now my brush is humongous, so I need to make my brush smaller. So I think I mentioned this last week. Using the left and right brackets, I can make my brush bigger or smaller. So I think it's what, left bracket will make my brush smaller. So I'm pressing the left bracket key on my keyboard and my brush is getting kind of small. That's pretty good. Now I want to make sure I have black selected in my foreground color. I have black and I'm going to paint a shadow. So watch, here it is. Okay. So you're probably thinking that's not a very good shadow, Dave. I know. Okay, there it is. Now this shadow layer is on top of my nail, so it kind of covers up my nail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag my shadow layer for my shadow underneath my nail. So watch, I'm going to drag the shadow underneath my nail. There it is. Now I'm looking at my shadow and it's like, I didn't draw it very well. Now normally I could do really good, but I was just kind of haphazardly drawing it. I can erase some of this so that it looks a little better. I can even move the shadow. In fact, maybe that's the answer. Maybe I can move it. Because my shadow is on a separate layer, I can use my move tool and I can move it like, oh, see, that already looks better. Because what happens is the shadow is cast from the nail point itself. This looks weird though. This doesn't match. So maybe I can paint a little more. Let's see. I'm going to paint a little more here. Rounder. Okay, good. I can even erase it. Okay, I'm talking too much about this. Remember, you don't have to do this. I just want you to know about it. And if you want to try, go for it. If not, if you fail, if you can't make it work, just throw the shadow layer away. No big deal. But I want to erase some of this. Oh, that stinks. Yeah.
I can't find like my layers. Like I don't know where to find them.
On your host document. So if you can't find your layers, you can try opening, it might be in one of these panels. So it might be really small. Like I see it might be a real small little tab in one of these panels. But if you still can't find it, you can open it under Window. Window keeps track of all of your panels. Now, if there's a check mark on layers, that means it's open somewhere. It might be underneath something. It might be covered up. But what you could do is you can uncheck it to make it go away. And then you can go Window, check mark layers, and it should pop up again. Maybe that will help you find it.
Yeah, I found it now.
Okay, great. Excellent. So yeah, so that's a good point that I failed to mention. All your panels can be found under Window menu. So but right now we're pretty good. But like if you need your brush panel, you could go to brushes or, I like brush settings. I have it. Oh, here it is. Oh, that's interesting. I have my brushes over here, but it's not check marked. Interesting. Okay, well, anyways, so I have brushes with my brush. Okay, who cares? So anyways, so here's my shadow. I can even lower the opacity of my shadow. Maybe I don't want it to be 100%. Maybe I want it to be lower, like maybe 80%. Okay, big deal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to group that shadow layer with my nail. So I'm going to hold the control key and I'm going to select my nail and my shadow layer. So they're both selected. Then I could press Control G. I forgot who mentioned it. So that works, Control G, but I won't be able to name it right away, but you can name it afterwards. Control G, or I can go New Group from Layers. So that's just the way I do it. New Group from Layers. And then my selected layers, I have both my nail and my shadow, new group from layers, and I can name it. I want to name it nail, enter. So there's my nail group. Now, why did I make this into a group? Because eventually you are going to want, well, I like the shadow. The shadow looks nice. If you can't, like I said, give it a try. If it doesn't work, don't worry about the shadow. It's extra. I just want to give you a little extra. If some of you know how to do all this stuff, and it might be a nice challenge to make that shadow. But if not, no big deal. Now, I also want to show you guys that when I have a group, this is why I don't use auto select layer, because now my nail is actually a group of 2 layers. And that way I don't have to make that shadow over and over again. So what I could do is I can select my nail group, I can hold the Alt key, and I can just drag a copy. So that's how you can get copies of a layer or a group. But it's nice because I don't have to redraw that shadow every time. That shadow is part of that nail group. So again, if I want to make copy, because you need to have a bunch of nails. So I can hold the Alt key, drag a copy, and I can just hold the Alt key, hold my left mouse button, drag a copy. I can make a lot of them. Then later, I need to organize my nails. I can actually group all my nail groups. You can group groups. So I can put all those groups into one group, and that might be a nice way to organize those nails. Now, if that doesn't work, don't worry about it. Let's see, let me make a copy of this nail. So here's just a nail. So if you can't get that shadow thing to work and you just have a nail like layer, you can just make copies of your nail by holding the Alt key and drag, and then you hold the Alt key, and you can drag as many as you want. And you can see that it's making copy, 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 copy. Or you can make a copy of a layer. It's not hard, but you can go to the options for layers. You can go Option, Duplicate Layer, and it will make a duplicate. But then usually when you make a duplicate, it's stacked directly on top of the previous layer. So you'll have to move it to see it. So watch, I can just move it away. And then if I go Duplicate Layer, I hit OK, and then I have to move it away. So that's how you can get duplicates, because you're going to need a bunch of nails. I am, though, going to delete. You don't have to do the shadow. I just want you to be aware of it. If you can make the shadow group work, perfect. Go for that. If not, don't worry about it. Okay, so we have some nails. Now we have our person here. Let's see. I need to rotate him a little bit. Let's see. Well, I don't even know what he's supposed to look like. So I'm going to look at the original. Let's see, I got the heart in there, so I'm going to close it. Once you get your images into your host document, you can close the other tabs. So like, I don't need the metal heart tab. So I'm going to close it. I'm going to click on the X. I'm not going to save it. And then I don't need the neon man anymore because he's in my host document. So I'm going to close that. I don't need the nail PNG, so I'm going to close that. Don't forget, to get the nail in your project, you're going to go in Photoshop, you're going to open it. You're going to go File, Open to get that nail, because it's a PNG. It's a different file format. And then let's see. Oh, I didn't get this person in yet. So I'll get this person in soon. One more thing to mention about the PNG. It's the same with an Illustrator file. Now, we don't need to open an Illustrator file in Photoshop today. But in the future, what will happen is in a future project, we're going to use some of your flat sketches that you did in Illustrator. And what you can do is you go into Photoshop and you open that Illustrator file, and it will rasterize it or make it an image. And you can actually put your Illustrator file directly in Photoshop. You won't be able to edit the lines and shapes. It'll be a picture of it, but it'll be good. It'll be very useful. Now, if you have your Illustrator file and you just double click it from your desktop, it'll open up Illustrator and then open up that file. But just like this PNG, if you're in Photoshop and you go File, Open, and you open an Illustrator file, it'll convert it to a Photoshop compatible file and just open it up in Photoshop as like a layer or an image. And basically it rasterizes it, meaning it just becomes like a picture of it. But that will be very useful in the future. So just food for thought. Now, I want to move some of these images around. I think I want to rotate this image a little bit. I'm going to press enter. Now, let me look at my original inspiration. Let's see, it's this one. So I'm going to open this up so I can compare it. So I got this one. Oh, okay. So now I can see, oh, I don't have, oh, I'm just going to close her. I'm not going to, well, you know what? Let's look at her real quick. Image size. Is she a weird one? I'm not gonna throw her in my project, but you have to resize that image and put her into your project. So I don't have her yet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of look at that original image and try to kind of arrange it similarly to the sample. Now it doesn't have to be exactly, but I can see already that this this kind of man, this neon man, he needs to be rotated a little bit. And there's two nails here. So let's see, I'm going to go back to my project. He's kind of like right here. Looks like he needs to be rotated a little more. I'm going to press enter. He overlaps the consumer, the girl. Then I'm going to select this concrete. I think the concrete is like over here. And then I got some of these nails. So I'm going to move this. I'm going to move like a nail here. I'm going to move in. Oop. I'm going to select this nail group. It's a group. I'm going to move this here. And something like that. So that will help you start organizing. Oh no. Undo. Okay, so I have to select the, that was interesting. When I clicked on this, it only selected that individual, that was bad. I need to select the group itself to move it over together. Ah, that was no good. Okay. And then let's see, let me look back. This is a little straight on and it's behind the consumer. So like lucky me, it already is. I'm gonna rotate this thing and it's kind of like that. So you wanna kind of match it. Now remember, if let's see, let's imagine this concrete was on top. So if the concrete is on top, I look at that original image and her image is on top of the concrete. So I have to move the concrete layer to be underneath her image. So I go back here and I can just drag it down. Let's see, where is it? If all your stuff is named, like here she is, she's like way down here. So I'm gonna drag the concrete to be right underneath her. So there it is. And then you might need to move stuff around. Try your best. Now, another thing we need to do though, is we need to make groups. We need to group some stuff. The problem is one group, everything in one group will be on top of everything in another group. And that's kind of confusing. So you want to try to make useful groups. Like here's what I recommend. I recommend that your nails are all in one group. And your nails can be on top because they're nailing all the pictures down to the whatever, the board or the wall. So I'm going to move, let's see, I'm going to move this brick. Let's see. So I'm going to move this brick to be underneath the nails. So all of my nails are on top right now. And I want to group these nails because you're probably going to have a bunch of nails. You're probably going to have, let's see, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you're probably going to have 11 copies of that nail. I only have 4 at the moment. So I'm just going to group these. But I would group all 11 of them. I just don't have 11 of them out there. Now, what do I want to do? I want to select all of these layers or all of these groups. So I can select one nail from my layers. I can hold Control and I can click all of these. You can also hold Shift. Like if you select a bottom layer and then you hold Shift and select a top layer, it'll select all the layers in between. But a good habit is just to hold Control. That way you can skip layers if you wanted to. I just hold Control and I click on them one at a time. Now I have all of my layers selected that I want to be in a group. And then I'm going to go, you can do Control G or you can do Option, New Group from Layers. That'll make a new group from your selected layers. I'm just going to name them nails. And there they are. The nice thing about this is if I select this group, I can move them around. If I want to change the color of all of these nails, I can just apply, you don't do this, but I could apply a color change only to this group of nails and it can change them. Like if I want them to be red, like don't do this, but I'll show you. Color overlay. And I want it to be, you know, red. And so now they're rusty. And then I want it to be, I don't know, whatever, 40% red, and I hit OK. So now this color overlay, don't worry about this if this doesn't make sense. This is for the future. But this is another good purpose of a group. I have all my nails and I want to change them. I added a little bit of red and I just did it. So I added it to that group, and within that nail group, I've got all my nails in that nail group, and I changed the color to everything in that group. We'll talk about that in the future. But again, that's another bent. It went away. What happened? That's it. Okay. So it's just another option. That's why groups are wonderful, right? But don't worry about that. That's extra information. You don't have to change the color of your nails. But you do want to maneuver your stuff around. Now, but just let me show you a pitfall that can happen. So let's see. Let's say you want to be careful. You almost want to group images that are behind and then like images that are in the foreground, right? So like for instance, I got this concrete. If I group this concrete image with the brick, watch, it's going to mess up. So I'm going to select both of these. I selected the concrete and the brick, and I selected both layers by holding Control, and I selected so I clicked on my first layer, I hold Control, and I click on my second layer, and I can select both layers. But the problem is they're in different parts of they're in different levels, and if I group them together, it's going to mess them up. I think it'll bring them to the top. Let's find out. So I'm going to go Option, New Group from Layers. Let's see if it moves it to the top. I'm going to hit Enter. Yeah, so it moved them both to the top, but I don't want that. I want this concrete to be behind everything. So I can't have this concrete in this group. I can make another group. Maybe I want to make you don't necessarily want to do this, but maybe I want to make a background group. Watch, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to make a new group. I'm going to name it background. Enter. I'm going to put my wall in there, my graffiti. So that's in the background. And then I want this concrete to be in there. So I'm going to drag. So to put this layer in this group, I drag it directly on top of that name. There it is. When do we get out? We finish up soon. So this layer, the wall, the graffiti wall, and the concrete are kind of in the back. So I put them in the background group. So just be careful of that. Groups that are on top will be in front. So basically everything in group 1, right here, everything in group 1 will be on top of everything that's underneath it. So everything in group 1 is going to be on top of everything in the background group. So just be careful of that. Like things can get out of order. Don't be too crazy about, try to do some groups. You can definitely put all your nails in a group because they're all the same, and the nails will be on top of everything because they're poking into the board. So your nails group, that's on top. You can have like a background group where kind of like stuff that's in the back, kind of like your graffiti wall, maybe if there's some images that are behind everything, you can put them in there. And that might help you organize. Just be careful. So let's see, is this the original? So I'm looking at, and my heart image is kind of near the top. So my heart image, I will drag, where's my heart image? Oh, it is already on the top. So I can put my heart image into group 1, and I can call group 1, I can call it foreground. I could call it my foreground group. I can call it in front group. I can call it whatever, whatever you want. Don't call it group number 1. You got to give it a name. So foreground, middle, background. I mean, you can have, it's up to you to change the names, but I'll let you be inventive. Okay, finally, let's see. So I talked about groups. I talked about smart objects. I talked about getting your stuff in. You don't have to do a shadow for your nail, but it's optional, and you can group it if you like. Let's look at how I'm going to grade this thing. Let's go to Canvas real quick, just to make sure. Let's see. So So what am I grading on this thing? First, digital file is correctly named, the correct file type. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna make a Photoshop file and you're gonna save it at 300 pixels per inch, okay? That's your work file. I'm not gonna see that file. You're just gonna keep, so you're like, well, Dave, if you don't see that file, how do you know that I did it? I'm gonna trust you that you have a work file. It's just your regular file. It's 300 pixels per inch and it's a Photoshop file. Then I'll show you when we're done, we're gonna save a copy. It's gonna be a lower resolution, 150, and it's gonna be an Adobe Photoshop PDF file, but I'll show you that soon, okay? Anyways, correct file size. Make sure it's 11 inches wide by 8.5 high, landscape. So I kind of showed you that. So if you missed it, just watch the beginning of this video and you'll see it. Correct file resolution. Your project, your host document is 300 pixels per inch. So just make sure that happens. Oh, but here I say, oh, never mind. I say, okay, correct file resolution. File is 300 ppi, pixels per inch on your home computer. Now I don't see that one, but a copy is resampled, you know, to the 150 pixels per inch and saved as a Photoshop PDF and submitted to Canvas. Did I not say 150 ppi? Ew. I'll change this tonight to say resampled to 150 ppi, okay? So it has to be 150, and I'll show you right now. Then it says accurately labeled layers. That just means you name your layers. Just name all your layers, right? No numbered layers. That's like the default. Just give them a name, like the brick layer, the person layer, the denim layer. So just name your layers. Let's see. Well-organized file using layer groups. So let's see, what does it say? All layers are effectively organized. All layers are inserted into a layer group. Try to put all your layers into groups. But if you can't do it, if you put most of your layers into groups, like if you put all your nails into a group, that's good. And then maybe put, like I said, put maybe the background layers into a background layer. You could have a foreground group where the foreground group has your images that are in front. Your background group has your background stuff that's kind of in the back. And then you could do a middle. Normally you wouldn't have to put everything into a group, but it's for practice for this project, it matters. Try your best. Try to put as much of your layers into groups, and you probably will be able to put them all into groups. Smart objects. Every layer is a smart object, unless you do a shadow. Like if you do that shadow, that doesn't have to be a smart object. That's just a paint layer. Let's see. Appropriately resized resolution. So here's the thing. Remember how I said we're going to resample our project, and then it's going to be 150 pixels per inch? And you're like, well, if that's the case, how can this be true? Resolution on all smart objects when opened is 300 pixels per inch. I'll show you. What happens is if I double click on a smart object, it'll open it up separately and it will tell me that its original resolution was 300. That's another good benefit of smart objects. When we save our project, when we resample it as a copy at 150 pixels per inch, the smart objects should be still 300 pixels per inch. So it's I'll show you, it's neat. But anyways, you shouldn't have to worry about that. If you do it correctly to begin with, it should be okay. And then let's see, appropriately resized images. So like follow this handout. So like I said, like the consumer image, the sidewalk, the fence, those are all like 3 inches tall. And your handout will tell you that. In fact, I'll show you where here, it's right up here. So if I click on this, it should just open up. Oh, here it is. So here it tells you. So this is what, assignment 1 FA. Was that for fall? I don't know what the FA is for. That was probably for fall. Anyways, here it says like the title's the word, right? So that's going to be 5 inches wide. Sidewalk, consumer image, LED inspiration. That's probably the lady with the neon, right? That's 3 inches tall. The neon man, 4 inches tall. So it tells you the sizes. Here it'll tell you, let's say, oh, here it is. Here's the 150 PPI image. This is the resample. So that's the one I'm gonna show you how to do that right now. But it tells you 150. So you have a work file at 300 PPI, and then the copy is 150 PPI. Again, this is just practice. Normally, if I was a big shot, like if I was a big design firm and we all had high-end computers, I wouldn't make you resample it to send it to me. I would just be like, actually, I'd probably walk over to your desk and just look at it. But like if you were working for me and you're gonna give me your project that I paid you for, you would give me the 300 pixels per inch. That's normal. The only reason why we're saving to 150 is because of Canvas. Canvas has a hard time with big files. So it just helps it upload. But I'm trusting you. You have a separate file at 300. But we'll talk. Anyways, that's it. This is the information. So just let me show you how to do that right now, and then I'll see if there's any questions. So let's go back to Photoshop here. Okay, here it is. My project is not finished, but let's imagine it is. So I'm working at 300 pixels per inch. I'm going to look at it here. 300 pixels per inch. It's width 11 and 8.5. So this is my regular file that I'm going to save. So I'm just going to save it. Let's see. So when you're done, you're going to save it at 300. So I go save, saved. I'm all done. Let's imagine I'm a student. I'm all done. Now I'm going to resample my project and save it as a copy. So watch this. This is how you do it. So refer back to the video here if you forget. It's all saved 300. Now I'm going to go image size. And I want to, you can just change it right here. So let's see. Resample is checked. Oh boy. I'm going to highlight 300. Now you'll know it's working. You'll know it's working when the height and the width are still 11 by 8.5. I'm only going to change the resolution, but the pixels will change because there's going to be less pixels if I only have 150 pixels per inch and the inches stay the same. If this is halved, I think it's more than half. It's like, anyways, but this will change. So watch, I'm going to go 150, and it did change. So this changed. Resample is checked. This is linked. I just changed the resolution, 150. My pixel dimensions changed. They got smaller. So that's it, 150. Remember, this is going to be a copy. So I'm going to hit OK. Now, don't save it normally because I need to save this as a copy. Okay, so I'm in danger here of accidentally saving this over my original. Well, I'm going to go save as. So I'm going to go File, Save As. When you save as, it'll save a copy, right? Okay. Now, I don't want it to be a Photoshop file. I want it to be a Photoshop PDF. So watch, I'll show you. I'm going to click on Photoshop for the Save As type. And there's a lot of different options. There's like TIFF. TIFF is kind of common. TIFF is like, it doesn't lose image quality, but we don't need that. There's all kinds of stuff here. There's all kinds of weird stuff. I'm going to go all the way down, Photoshop PDF. So a Photoshop PDF, it's a, gosh, what is it? It's a Photoshop file that acts like a PDF. A PDF is like an Acrobat file, right? Like Adobe Acrobat. So, and usually Acrobat files take up less memory. Usually they kind of like lower the quality a little bit. So, but that's okay because you're just going to upload this one to me, right? So I'm going to save as Photoshop PDF. And then if you want, as long as you're save as and Photoshop PDF, you should be okay. It should save a copy. Usually this stuff is check marked. So this is okay. You want layers. That's usually default. So I'm going to hit save. Now watch what's going to happen. Well, I already did this for my previous, so I'm going to replace it. This is going to replace my previous PDF. Now, it's going to give you this box, this option box. By default, this is good. So you just hit save PDF. So normally you're just going to, okay, oh, okay, that looks good, save PDF. But let's just look at the options here. You definitely want to preserve Photoshop editing capabilities. That means I'll be able to look at the layers. It'll just be lower quality. Oh, look, here's high quality. Keep it at high quality, but we can make it small. Ooh, don't do this. Keep it high quality, but you could lower the image quality if you just wanted it to download faster, but don't do that. Just keep it at high quality. High quality is okay. High quality. And so basically all these the setup is good. So you're just gonna hit save. So I'm gonna hit save. And that's it. So I saved a lower resolution copy. I still have the original Photoshop 300 pixels per inch. This is a copy. It is Photoshop PDF at 150 pixels per inch. So watch this video again. Here, I'll just show you. I'll show you super fast again. So here you go. This is my original. I'm done. I'm done with my project. I saved it. I save it as my 300 pixels per inch Photoshop file. Photoshop. Now I want to save a copy at a resampled lower image quality. So here I go. I'm going to go image. I'm just going to do it fast. Image size. Resample is check marked. This is good. So I'm going to just make it 150 pixels per inch. It's smaller. So I hit OK. It should get smaller. Now when I save it, I'm going to save it as, I'm going to go File, Save As. But this time not Photoshop. I'm going to save it as, I'm going to go down the list, Photoshop PDF, and I'll save that. So that's what you want to do. And that's the one you'll upload to me, to Canvas next week. It's due before class. So let's see, it's due, what, 11:59 next Thursday. But if you finish, whenever you finish this project, just upload it to me, because don't wait to the last minute to turn it in. If you finish it Monday or Saturday, just upload it to me. And that's it. I think I talked about everything. I'm going to stop recording, and then we'll see if you have any questions. Let me stop recording first.